No, the way I characterize it in my book, and Wollstonecraft scholars have sort of different opinions of this, but I think that she, in a lot of ways, in A Vindication of the Rights of Women, is warning women to steer clear of libertine men, men who don't care about their dignity. She's also warning women to not be manipulative and not self-objectify and not care only about their appearance. I mean, there's all sorts of things she's warning them about in order to sort of really inspire them to live lives of virtue, which we'll talk about. But she is warning them about these libertine men. And then, as it turns out, she thought she had found this new man in this American Gilbert Imlay. And the letters she writes to him, which we have, are incredibly beautiful. And they really call him toward the philosophy of marriage that she espouses in her Rights of Women. They call him to share kind of domestic life with him, like with her, why don't you see how important this life is together with our child? And it's trying to call him away from this other woman. And it's incredibly tragic. It's incredibly tragic, especially because as a woman like me in the 21st century who has all sorts of philosophies of marriage and all sorts of philosophies of life, that her philosophy seems to me is so edifying for women. And it's one that I found that I've been able to live myself with my own husband, with my own children, that our life is very much centered around the work we do together in the home raising our children. And the way in which the formation and inculcation of virtue in our children and the way in which that redounds to inculcating virtue in ourselves, God willing, is something that is really part of her vision. So when I read her vision, I just, it was so compelling to me because I was already living it or trying to live it. And then to understand what she wasn't able to have. Her relationship with William Godwin is really interesting in a way because when he first met her as a peer in this group of dissenters, those who were dissenting from the English government requiring everyone to, anyone who worked for the government to, sign on as being Anglican. So of course Catholics are left out and any other Protestants and others are entirely sort of left out of that. And so she was among these dissenting and kind of small R Republicans at this time. And so they were sort of, had very different philosophical approaches. And he really didn't like the Rights of Women, didn't like that book, didn't like her. And so they go on later to meet, and then they're able to have sort of an accord. And I think he really grew to love her. I mean, incredible intellect. The fascinating thing is that he never understood her religiosity because, of course, he was an atheist himself. And as we know, it's hard for an atheist to grasp someone else who's would go for walks to sort of really commune with the divine and really understood her whole life as being sort of an imitation of the goodness of God. So, and that's what she thought the point of life was. So they had an intellectual and I think a real loving relationship, but even with him, there wasn't a sharing in the way that I found with my own husband. So there is a way in which her life is very tragic.
It's a tragic sense, and I just want to say, Mary, there are good guys out there, trust me. And, furthermore, the other thing I found astounding is that it's really just a good moral vision for men as well. It's really, it's the Wollstonecraft vision for women, and it's different because you're a woman, but there's also the same over here for men.
That's right.
And Mary Eberstadt brought that out pretty well in her book, How the West Really Lost God, because it was so focused on what the family can do to bring out God.
Yeah.
And but anyway, so here's your big opportunity to state Mary Wollstonecraft, and you might say her name. I hate to coach you a little bit in the beginning, but her moral vision as best you can.
Yeah.